I'd like to acknowledge all the work that's gone into cleaning up this area in the 2-week period. You know, people have been spending long hours, companies like Brightside, the department, there've been JBS, there've been a lot of companies here, a lot of workforce cleaning stone by stone. It is very hard work in very tough conditions because it gets very hot, and people have been pulling 14-hour days. It's important to recognize that work, but with respect to the 10-year period, I think it's a bit early to start saying how much we've mitigated that damage. Why? Because it's established science that this 10-year period exists where an oil spill has got into the ecosystem. And right now we can see that there's still oil and the plankton is still absorbing that, and that's still going through the ecosystem. So it's still causing damage even right now, despite all the amazing hard work that has gone into cleaning this up. That's one of the reasons why it's so problematic. So we really need to wait and assess as to what we're seeing along the coastline before we can make a claim like that, in my opinion.
And what are these lasting 10-year effects that you mentioned? You mentioned it going into the ecosystem.
So what happens is the plankton will absorb it first, and then the zooplankton will feed on the plankton. And then we've got fish species, for example, that'll feed on both the plankton and the zooplankton. We've also got filter feeders, like mussels and things, which will be filter feeding the plankton directly too. So now what we've got is this oil that's working its way up the food chain, and it bioaccumulates, which means the concentrations as you go up the food chain are stronger as you work up the food chain. How does it affect the organisms? Well, so fish reproductive rates drop. The size of the fish that you get drop, with their very strong signals in crabs as well. So these are things that we can expect to see, of course, because these are food sources for other larger organisms. You start to have effects along the trophic levels.
The ESG is calling for bigger fines, more monitoring, naming and shaming, etc., to prevent oil spills in future. But the captain of the port said that there's not lax standards or supervision in bunkering operations, and that there is a lot of monitoring. What are your thoughts? There's more need to be done to prevent oil spills?
So two things I would say on that. The first one is that the 1.5 million has been paid in environmental cleanup bill. But who is assessing the environmental damage over the next 10 years and that cost? If we take the OS 35 as an example, my understanding is that there was no environmental damage costs given to that. And so we're actually missing out on monies that should be being paid. And then with respect to the idea that nothing has gone wrong, there was a smaller oil spill, a minor oil spill, where they said that there was no environmental damage. How is that being assessed? I'm not sure that is an accurate statement. Perhaps minor environmental damage, but certainly not no environmental damage. And if there has been a spillage, what is the mechanism to look at what went wrong and how to improve that process? I think that certainly needs to be looked at in order to make sure that these spills don't happen again, minor or otherwise.